everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for May 24th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Feel Good Friday edition of the podcast. There are Feel Good Fridays, and then there is today. It is the unofficial start of summer, Memorial Day weekend. There are barbecues, beers, pools, parties, all kinds of stuff on the agenda for this weekend. I cannot wait. Burgers and dogs and cannot wait. So be safe no matter what you do out there. We have some Phillies baseball on top of it all, and your team is good. Let's just jump right into the Phillies right now. And I mean, at this point, I don't know what else I can say that I haven't said already. And they're just doing it with everything they got. Zach Wheeler was just outstanding yesterday. 7 innings, 5 Ks, 2 earned runs. And I was listening to it on the way home from my testing site downtown, and Fransky and Stocker were talking about it, and it was an interesting point that Wheeler, and I've noticed this more so this year and kind of even the end of last year, it's very adaptable. So, and I admit, I took his over strikeout props over 7 yesterday, and he only ended up with the 5, but he adjusted what they were doing. They were more patient in the first couple innings. So that's when he was kind of getting the strikeouts and really working on that. Then they got aggressive. So he was allowing them to hit and letting his fielders do the work. It's the same thing I teach my kids for Little League. Like, let your fielders do the work. That's why they're out there. And it's just like a small, subtle thing like that. And that, to me, is what's making the difference this year as opposed to the past couple years. But this is just like a ridiculously historic start. It's the best start for any major league team since the 84 Tigers, the 98 Yankees, and the 98 Braves, as well as the 2001 Mariners. and I heard this on the way in, and I usually don't listen to Rob Thompson's post-game conference, but his post-game press conference from the night before when they got off to the best 50-game start or whatever it was since the 2006 Mariners. That's the team that has the record for most wins in a regular season, 116. And I loved his response to it. He was like, yeah, but what did they do? What did they do? And they got knocked out. I believe it was the ALDS. I don't even think they made it to the ALCS, I believe, by the Yankees. So he's keeping them focused, and I think that, to me, to a man, they're all going back to Schwarber getting pissed off that they lost the game before the getaway, even though they had won the previous one. I think it was the Mets game, but I forget what game it was. But either way, getting pissed off about that. The fact that people are talking about the schedule, and Bryce Harper's like, yes, but these are the defending World Series champions. This is who we want to be. And just keeping it focused like that, and it's subtle little things like that. They all want to win. And when you have the talent and now they have the focus, they have the experience, I think everybody's like, oh, well, the schedule. And again, you can only play who's in front of you. I've said this 1,000 times, even going back to the Eagles last year. But I do feel as though they're gaining confidence by doing this, and I don't necessarily see this team falling off because of how focused they are, how confident they are. They know now how they can play, and I think that, to me, is the difference between this team and that team. They're focused, and buckle up, enjoy the ride because it's going to be fun. Listen, enjoy it. I know people are trying to find ways to pick it apart, but just relax and enjoy the ride. This is a once-in-a-lifetime type team we got here. So just sit back, relax, have a hot dog, have a beer, and just enjoy the ride. They're in Colorado this weekend and then go to San Francisco. For this road trip, I think I would like to see at least minimum 3. But I think realistically, let's keep the streak of winning series. Like, ordinarily, going out and saying, all right, we'll take go 500 on a 6-game road trip out west, you would take that. but I think why not? Let's get greedy and go for two series wins, win 4 out of the 6 out there, then come back home and get ready for that trip to London. And speaking of that London, Philly Goat has you covered for that London series, and they make good shirts for the 4th of July as well. So go check them out. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. Get their other stuff too. The Phillies have been on a beast mode tear lately. They have the Fanatic Feast Mode shirt. They have the Philly City Connect like I'm wearing today. Go through their archive, see what they got. And we've been talking about getting ready for the nickname tournament. I'll get more into that later. A lot of the guys that are in the nickname tournament, they have shirts for. So just go check out Philly Goat. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off. Treat yourself this Memorial Day. You won't be disappointed. PhillyGoat.com, promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. All right, so quick recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, in the past 25 years, what is your favorite Phillies home run? 75% of you said it was Bedlam at the Bank. Hard to argue that. Ironically enough, the only other ones that received votes were Stairs home run. Oh, excuse me. Allergies are just killer. Hopefully, now that Memorial Day is here, some of this pollen will start going away. But Stairs home run and Schmitty's 500th, which personally is mine. But thank you, as always, for participating in the question of the day. There will be another question later in the show. 267-495-8531. Get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. Text me, call me, let me know what you're thinking. You can even possibly get on the air. All right. Couple housekeeping things from yesterday. I mentioned we talked about Tommy Green's no-hitter, and I said that the Phillies had a long winning streak in 92 that set the tone coming in for the 93 season. Close. The 13-game winning streak they had was actually in 1991 and went from the end of July till mid-August. Not bad for being how many ever years ago and my just being older. But I want to make sure, as always, that you're getting the correct information. So that 13-game winning streak was in 1991, the same season that Tommy Green. So a lot of those guys that the Phillies had in 1991 were also a vital part of that 93 team. All right, I mentioned the Philly Sports Nickname Tournament. We are going to crown the best nickname in Philly sports history as voted on by you, the listeners of This Day in Philly Sports History. There will be 64 nicknames starting June 24th and going through July 25th. We'll have 2 matchups per day leading up to the championship on July 25th. It's already broken down into 4 regions: the Cheesesteak, the Schuylkill, the Balboa, and the Ben Franklin. And I'm just working in the draft or the war room with the selection committee, trying to move and get everybody where they need to belong. Trying to figure out what the protocol should be on ranking these nicknames. The top 4 seeds, though, are set. I'll have more on them in a couple of weeks, but we are still, like I said, trying to finalize some things. Conference tournaments are going on, so we'll see. We had a couple upsets yesterday, knocked a couple teams out of the tournament onto that last 4 in line. So it's anybody's game now. But having some fun with this and getting it set up. And I want to make sure it's right. Obviously, just like the NCAA, there's going to be a ton of people who are saying, well, how come this person? And listen, not everybody can make it. We're trying to whittle it down. The Phillies came into existence in 1883, and we're trying to whittle it down to 64. And I'm including college and coaches and announcers and teams. So there's a lot of nicknames to work through. So we will have it set up and ready to kick off June 24th. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everybody, spread the word. I want to make this even bigger than last year's Lovable Loser tournament. Hit me up on social media, Jimbo_Mont at Twitter and TikTok. I'm on Facebook. Hit me up on Instagram at PhillyJimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and like all of the videos you watch and all the podcasts you listen to. That helps so much with the algorithm and getting us in. There's people all the time, like people are like, oh, I've heard of that. That's popped up in my feed when I talk to them. So we're getting there. It's a grassroots movement, but let's spread the word. And I really want to blow up this tournament. So let's do it. Subscribe. Tell your friends. Get ready for the Ultimate Philadelphia Sports Nickname Tournament. I don't know what the official name of the tournament is going to be yet. I'm working on that. But you'll spread the word. I need your help there. And if you're interested in anything Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame related for this year's induction class, including tickets, the information is in the description below. All the stuff you need. We're gearing up for the silent auction. So if you have anything you'd like to donate, I've been talking a lot about businesses and services, but if you have sports memorabilia that you would like to donate, I know I was talking with my brother about some things. Let me know. They'll certainly take that as well. Part of the proceeds go to charity. Part of the proceeds go to help fund the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. But hit me up with that as well. Any and all donations, and I'm still working on that East Falls sort of excursion. And if anybody out there is involved with the Philly U men's or women's basketball team, hit me up as well, because I'm looking to possibly do some sort of package where you get tickets to a game and then maybe a restaurant or so out there. So hit me up if you know anybody. Spread the word, and I appreciate it. All right, Eagles news. They did sign John Ross to a one-year deal. He is a former first-round pick receiver from the Bengals. He played for the Giants last year. He was number 9 overall in 2017. Injuries, I don't know if this really moves the needle that much. I guess the potential is there, but it's one of those high-risk or no-risk, high-reward signings that Howie likes to do. Again, I'd rather see it go to one of the guys they drafted, but, I mean, it's a body. I don't know. It's not Michael Thomas. It's not somebody that's like, oh, I can't believe they signed John Ross. But, I don't know. A lot of feedback on OTAs yesterday. If you are specifically if you listen on Spotify through the app, question I posted there was, do you put a lot of stock in there? And a lot of you said a little bit, but it's only practice in May. And so maybe I was getting a little bit more hyped up than what I should be. But, I mean, when Eagles are the number one team in the city, you kind of get hyped up for things like that. But thank you, as always, for your feedback there on Spotify as well. Sixers. Oh, boy. I mean, it is just rumor central. And I saw somebody list it, and I wrote them down. And these are all the teams all the players that the Sixers have been linked to since dating back to last season. Zach LaVine, Klay Thompson, OG Anunoby, Donovan Mitchell, Brandon Ingram, Kevin Durant, LeBron James. I've even heard people say they're bringing back Tobias. So buckle up. It's going to be an interesting offseason. It's almost like they're playing 2K mode or 2K on franchise mode, where it's just like, who do we pick? And put it in the trade analyzer. So it should be interesting, but buckle up. It's going to be a crazy ride. Sticking with the NBA, though, the Celtics are up 2-0 on the Pacers. Does look like they're going back to the NBA Finals, which leads to today's question of the day. The Dallas Cowboys are not available. Which team would you rather see not make the championship? The Mets, the Celtics, the Braves, or the New York Football Giants? Let me know. 267-495-8531. Get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. Text me, call me, hit me up on social media. Let me know. The Cowboys are not available. Which team would you rather see lose? The Mets, the Braves, the Celtics, or the New York Football Giants? If it's somebody else, let me know that too. I know the Knicks are kind of up there now. But let me know. 267-495-8531. Back to the Future voice and text line. If it was me, it's tough. I mean, you know how I feel about the Giants, but I might have to go Celtics on this one, just because New York fans, I can deal with. It's just weird. Boston, their fans, I don't know. To me, it's probably the Celtics. But let me know, which team would you rather see lose? That is today's question of the day. Time for our daily Mishkov watch. No update on whether or not he's going to be able to opt out, but there are lots of articles, and I find this interesting because obviously I don't know nearly as much about hockey as I do the other sports, so as I'm going through, I like to read and see what's going on. And the articles are almost anticipating him coming over for next year. And the questions they're asking is he NHL ready? And the consensus is from all these articles. I've read a few from authors in the reporters for The Athletic. There was a couple from Flyers blog writers. And the consensus is he's ready, and he's been ready. So as soon as he's able to opt out of that contract, things will be good for the Flyers. So if and when, we will welcome you back to Philly, Mishkov, and looking forward to having you on the team. All right, today we're going to go back to 1935. And on this day in 1935, the Reds beat the Phillies 2-1 at Crosley Field. The only Phillies run was knocked in on pitcher Joe Bowman's ground out in the 5th inning. Why am I talking about this game, a random game in 1935? Well, it was the first ever National League night game. And I'm going to preface that National League, and I'll explain why here in a minute. But on this night, for the longest time, this was the first Major League night game. And again, I'll explain what I mean in a minute. But around 8:30 p.m., FDR, all the way in the White House, pushed a button that sent a telegraph message to Cincinnati, and it allowed the owner of the Reds to turn on a switch, and over 600 floodlights came on, and the crowd of over 20,000 fans erupted into light as night baseball was here. Now, the 20,000 is important because the Reds were only averaging about 7,000 fans per game that year, and night baseball came up as an idea during the Depression to allow more fans to attend games, which I always wondered that. And this is just going to be a rant that has nothing to do with what I written down. But early days of Major League Baseball, before they had the lights, everybody went to games during the day. And I'm like, don't these people work? But then you start thinking about it, and a lot of the early video footage you see happened during the Depression when people weren't able to work. But then that begs the question, how are they getting money to pay for tickets? And I know tickets cost a lot more. I don't know. These are the things I think about sometimes when I'm working out or on a run. And that's what I was thinking about this morning as I'm kind of mentally prepping on my run this morning. I'm like, wait a minute. How weren't these people working? And then if they weren't working, how could they afford to go to the game? Anyway, I digress. But during the Depression, though, obviously times were tight for everybody. But doing night baseball allowed people that went to school and worked during the day to attend games. So the thought process was it was going to increase the revenue that the teams could collect, and also open up to many more fans who weren't able to. And the radio was a new technology just kind of coming around, so teams were able to. I believe in the 30s is when the first radio broadcast was. So it was really, they were really trying to grow the game. But this game was originally scheduled for May 23rd, but it got rained out. It only took 95 minutes to play. How's that? And there was no pitch clock back then either. But I say that this is the first National League night game because 10 years ago, this would be considered the first Major League Baseball night game. Now that a lot of the Negro League records and all of the players and all of the things surrounding the Negro Leagues are starting to be integrated into the history of Major League Baseball, and they're considered the Major Leagues. We talked, if you remember, I sat down with Brian Michael from A League Apart back in, I believe it was like March, and we talked about just how there's this huge effort to bring the records and everything from the Negro Leagues into Major League Baseball. Well, the first night game ever played by now what is considered the Major League was the Kansas City Monarchs did it back in 1930. So they were 5 years ahead of the curve. Now, there was a lot of minor league games that were also played in the 30s under lights, and for the same reason, to try to get revenue during the Depression and make sure that the teams could stay afloat. Ironically enough, this was not a big hit with the National League players at the time because they thought it would affect their routine. They thought the lights would be blinding, and came up basically with, think about how people are today when things change. People didn't like change back then either, so there was all these excuses of why it would not work instead of embracing it and seeing how it would catch on. And they didn't think it would. They're like, all right, this is kind of like a one-time deal. Nobody's going to want to watch baseball at night. Well, the rest, as they say, is history. Now, day games, especially during the week, day games are the exception to the rule. Most games start. I do like them moving up the game times to about 6:30, sometimes even 6. But majority of your games now, except for on the weekend, are at night. A little bit more on night games. In Philly, Shibe Park had its first night game May 16th in 1939. The A's took part in that. A couple weeks later, the Phillies played their first night game on June 1st. And just a random tidbit that I don't know why this always sticks out in my mind. Wrigley Field was the last field to get lights or play night baseball. I think they had some lights, but they just... Either way, and they were the last team to play a night game at their stadium. The original first night game, was supposed to be against the Phillies. They started that game, and a torrential rain came through, and it didn't get to the 5th inning. I think it was like 3rd or 4th inning. It got rained out. I remember watching it, and because the game was postponed or whatever it was not considered the first night game. It was like the next night against the Mets was the first night game. So there's your random bonus tidbit fact about night baseball. The Phillies played the first night game in Wrigley Field, but it did not count because of rain. There you go. But on this day, back in 1935, the Reds and the Phillies played the first ever night baseball game for the National League. At Crosley Field. FDR started things off by pushing the button, and they turned on the lights, but it was not the first Major League game, and I'm going to stand true to that. The first Major League game played under lights was the Kansas City Monarchs in 1930. All right, finally today, it's a family affair, and today we're going to spotlight Casey Matthews, linebacker for the Eagles. He was a 4th-round pick in 2011 out of Oregon, and no, he was not drafted by Chip Kelly, contrary to popular belief. He spent 4 years with the Eagles, had 2.5 sacks, 114 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, played mostly on special teams. At one point, he was the starting, I don't know if it was his rookie year or Andy Reid's last year in 2012, but he was the starting middle linebacker, and it didn't last long because he was just undersized, wasn't as good as some of the other people in his family, and of course, because it's a family affair, that's who we're going to talk about. But Casey was better on special teams than he was actually on defense. And he's far down on the list of best players in his family. His brother, Clay Matthews III, was a linebacker for the Packers, won a Super Bowl, was an All-Pro, Pro Bowler. His dad, Clay, was also a linebacker for the Cleveland Browns, All-Pro, Pro Bowler. One of the when you think of the Cleveland Browns in the late 80s, early 90s, you think Clay Matthews. But his grandfather, Clay Matthews Sr., also played. He was a tackle for the 49ers back in the 50s. His uncle Bruce, probably the best of the bunch, was a guard for the Houston Oilers, and I don't know if he made it to the Titans or not. I know he was right around that time, but he's the NFL's All-90s Decade Team, 100th Anniversary All-NFL Team, Hall of Famer, just, again, the top. And then he had a couple cousins that played, and this is the level Casey was on. Kevin, Jake, and Mike all played offensive line for different teams in the NFL. But when you have Clay Matthews III, Bruce Matthews, all in your family, you would think you'd get some of that talent, but no, we got Casey Matthews. And that is today's It's a Family Affair Spotlight for May 24th. On this day, back in 1935, the Phillies and Reds played the first National League night game of ever. The Reds beating the Phillies 2-1 in 95 minutes under the lights in chilly temperatures, I might add. It was pretty cold for May back in 1935 in Cincinnati. We will continue our Mishkov Watch tomorrow. We're going to also add players to the list that are being linked to the Sixers. It's going to be a wild offseason. And like I said, I still don't trust Daryl. Be sure to hit me up on social media. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow me on social media. Like wherever you're watching or listening to this. Just like it every day, because the more likes we get, the higher up the rankings we go, the more we show up with the algorithm. And spread the word about this tournament. I can honestly say I'm very, very excited for this nickname tournament. I think it's going to be a lot of fun because I'm having a ton of fun putting together the bracket. So stay tuned for that coming June 24th. Spread the word. Tell Grandma. Grandma will like it because there's definitely some folks on there that Grandma will like, especially if your grandmother was anything like mine and she was in love with Mike Schmidt. Did Mike Schmidt make the list? Find out soon. But we will do a selection Friday on June 21st to release the brackets. And you can find out where Mike Schmidt ranks on the list of nicknames and which nickname we use for him. Anyway, this has been This Day in Philly Sports History for May 24th, 2024. Be safe this weekend. Don't do anything stupid. Don't drink and drive. Call an Uber. Whatever you got to do. Walk. It's going to be nice out. Just don't be an idiot. Don't be dumb. Don't do it. But be safe. Enjoy your weekend. Go have yourselves a Friday. And until next time, this has been This Day in Philly Sports History. And I'm Jim Montgomery. And I'll see you when I see you.